we really are called upon getting deeper in discussions about the world that we want to live in. We should not just give in and follow some sort of automatic stream. The strength of human being has a capacity to create. I do dare to claim that what we are discussing today, we are creating a ticket for our existence. We see that health is a very strong element of relationships that exist either within the being itself or between the being, society, land, and our consciousness, which is sort of a historical wisdom, the collective wisdom. How would I like to be treated in the health system? Who do I want to be? How do I want to be dealt with? Would you be willing to become an active player in a preventive care approach? Because today we see that we are pretty much all the time in a curating mode. What is really health? Is that only an absence of a disease? Or is there a different way of looking at humans as beings? Is there a chance that we refocus our attention and focus more on resilient adaptability and our immune system to be more adaptable, to be more resilient? And all of a sudden I see different people, not just physical, not just emotional, not just intellectual, but I try to sense people on a spiritual level and especially on the energy level. I haven't seen any health system so far that it's addressing these dimensions and trying to help us to keep them in balance, because we know that whenever things are imbalanced, that's where problems appear.
We need to get out of the era of the toxic Anthropocene and move to this new one, which he defines, but it's very complex definition. And he describes what the first peoples of Australia have practiced for over 60,000 years. And I think Violeta's vision is consistent with what the Symbiocene would be like. And I quote, to be in balance with the planet, the universe, with ourselves, and our fellow humans. So the bad news is we've got a triple tsunami with healthcare systems geared to respond after the destructive waves have crashed. And washing hands and the promise of a vaccine are not existential solutions, but problems are opportunities in disguise, following from Martin Luther King's quote there. So my aim is to convince you that when it comes to health, we've got the balance wrong. So when considering Aaron Antonovsky's spectrum, most countries spend about 90% of their health budget on repair shops for illness and disease. So the balance, as Violeta was saying, needs to shift from seeking out pathogens to enhancing salutogens. COVID-19 has highlighted the fact it's time we acted on the long-known fact that 90% of our health and well-being are influenced by factors other than access to clinical services. As you can see there, only 10%. And as I said before, we should think of them as repair shops. We really need to shake the whole system up, because it's bizarre that we're measuring failures and not success. A disconnection from country, culture, and family contributes to an unhealthy state of mind, body, and soul.
We do know now that biography, that life experience, life circumstances get embodied. We know that it is important where we are born in, where we grow up, where we work, where we age. It is measurable in our life expectancy and our morbidity. Anthropologists call it embodied ecologies, this fluidity of our embodiment, where we must foreground relations instead of bounded, separate entities. What is our hope for the medicine of the future? One is called precision or personalized medicine, where we would gather immense amounts of data all through life, our genomics, transcriptomics, and all other omics, plus environments, plus our lifestyles, and all of the medical records would be constantly, from the womb to the tomb, gathered in the cloud, creating so-called medical avatar. More than half of physicians' time, so the research is showing us, is now spent in computer. These technologies are not just noting and surveying, but actually reshaping, restructuring clinical reality. So the other spectrum of person initiatives is person-centered care or relationship-centered care, taking into account the whole of a human being, the self-aware, meaning-seeking, purposeful, and relational nature of us. But how? How can we do that in this system, in ever more time-pressured, fragmented, rules and regulations-led everyday medical practice, with all this biomedical research now showing us that it's time to go beyond those separations? This all behooves us to go beyond the dualisms and tap into the wisdom of whole systems as humans are. I do believe we can glimpse the shifting towards salutogenesis, from management of diseases to enabling, evoking, helping, creating healing environments, where what matters to you is as well important as what's the matter with you. It is important to be aware of what is our intention, and it is important to notice what we are supporting and growing with our attention. It seems that together, somehow, with our developments, with our powerful tools of intervention, we seem to lose the wholeness vision of not only the human being, but of its life context. We are somehow caught in the success of modern medicine treating acute situations really brilliantly, but leaving us somehow barehanded, empty-handed with chronic conditions that are so inseparably connected with life. It's very difficult to listen to what already is and to tap into the wisdom of whole systems, being not only attentive to separate things, but to all of the stuff that it's in between.
Our mindset is so tied into the metrics and the regulatory frameworks that we work in. The evidence that I was relying on was built from 400 years ago, the clinical gaze, the way in which we are looking at health problems from that very objective position. And the only evidence that seems to be admissible in healthcare, in medical practice in particular, is the randomized controlled trial. I was fortunate enough to know about the IFF from its beginnings, and they use something called the Three Horizons framework to think about that transition. The first horizon is the business as usual that we know about at the moment. In future, and the horizontal axis is the time here, in future that's going to be a far smaller element of our pattern of healthcare. Because the vertical axis describes the pattern that we live in, and because of all those signs of strain and system failures, we keep trying to do things differently and innovate in order to keep things going. But in the meantime, there are some radically new ideas that are far better fit to the new environment that we're going into, which is our third horizon. In the process of this kind of transition, we have to start to ask ourselves, where are we innovating? Are we innovating to just keep that first horizon going? Or could we be innovating to help that third horizon emerge? And I wanted to draw your attention to what they call the talking room This is a consultation room. And you can see that the two chairs are on the same side of the computer. It's not clear when you walk into that room which chair you sit on, because you're equal partners in that relationship. And they call them talking rooms because 80% of primary care is a conversation. Healthcare systems are human systems. People have diseases. Diseases don't have people. And that wellness depends on relationships to oneself, to each other, and the wider world. Those relationships are built on quality listening and good conversations. And recovery has to be culturally coherent. It has to make sense to you. It has to give meaning in your life. Now they realize you can't actually provide quality healthcare if you're not also attending to social relationships, exploring meaning and purpose and what gives us joy in our lives. And that's not just towards our patients or clients, it's also towards ourselves.
How can we imagine the new normal right now?
What I will say is sometimes that sustaining innovations buy us time. So they are helpful in terms of keeping things going, but you've got to be thinking about more radical solutions for the longer term. We're really only beginning to realize the importance of the balance between human activity and animal health, for example, and the ecology of this planet. We cannot survive. We might get through this next bit of COVID over the next 5 years, but if we haven't addressed those deeper problems, it'll be a very temporary solution. The answers are on our doorsteps if we just help our communities to configure resilience at their level. It's happening all over the world now.
Are we ready for cross-civilizational integration? Or do you think we will be happy only if we invent everything by ourselves? What do you recognize as possible intervention that could speed up the process? Is there a role for regulation?
Medicine cannot be different than society in which it is operating. It's basically a mirror of the society, but with all of our knowledge and professional status that is still given to medicine, I believe we have a greater responsibility to be a part of the needed change. At the moment, if I look at my colleagues, what is a pervasive mood is being ever more burdened, ever more disillusioned, burdened out, basically in a survival mode. Colleagues, students are we're giving a space, an open space where you can be safe in sharing your dreams and your turbulations, where you can drop down the defense of the existing framework.
My dream is that people get paid for actually improving the health of the population.
It's up to us, really. And we won't do it overnight. But one of the things that is going to accelerate things is this COVID pandemic. People are taking much more sort of thoughtful choices about their use of healthcare in this time.
Either we learn to live together or we die together.
We're all sensing that disconnecting from yourself and from the world around you is actually not natural behavior of Homo sapiens. Relationships are the essence. The shifting paradigm will come from the relationship concept and will push technology into the business as usual and will take over the key role in shaping the future of our society. I feel that we are at the end of the era which was absolutely necessary for individuum to establish itself in the relationship with the system. Only together we can change things, but we need to know about each other and we need to be aware that what needs to be changed.
Can we imagine a different type of a health system, actually? A system of care, healing, preventive medicine, more holistic, more integrated, more horizontally integrated? And how can we imagine building it from bottom up?
Let me remind you that 50% of our health belongs to our behavioral issues. 20% belongs to our environmental issues. 20% belongs to our genetic issues, and only 10% belongs to issues related to healthcare and cure. It means that when we are speaking about eco-civilization, when we're speaking about civilization which should be, focused on health and well-being as social, mental, and physical denominator of people. It means that we need to have a lot of holistic actions to be now leaders in our societies, to show multidimensional and multi-sectorial but holistic approach, keeping in mind health in all political sectors. When we are speaking about eco-civilization, we are speaking about a situation to be, as you just timely raised, from ego to eco, from individuals to cooperations. We need to go forward, strengthening our instruments at EU level, knowing that now it is a political choice, health and ecology now to be seen as one continuum. And now it's political choice to do it.
When we are speaking about holistic, integrated systems and healing and caring, it is a relational concept. So we can, even from this regard, we can leave behind the solely focusing on it, on something particular specific. But it always has to be integrated in complex systems. Even in biomedical terms, we cannot afford anymore to divide mind, body, and human environment. We have physical data that this is now untenable scientifically.
Do not be afraid of the revolution. Smart medicine is better. The times they are changing. Health 4.0 is coming. And how I interpret that is that we'll end up with smarter repair shops, which may be good, but there's an opportunity cost which is taken away from investing in health. So that the system needs to change. So in other words, the change needs to come from the people and not from health service practitioners, which would have been behind that picture there.
There are value tensions between the ways that we do things at the moment and the ways in which we want to do things in the future. These are the kind of things that are coming up from our conversations, that people need time to think. They need to be able to stop things that don't generate value in the system. They need that systemic collaboration, the energy to deliver, valuing and supporting staff, because people in our systems are exhausted. And that's before you got to COVID.
We don't have really answers, but what we need to build is confidence that if we collaborate, collaborative actions where things emerge, if you hold the space with the right people, things emerge, and then you follow up. There is an incredible opportunity to realize that if we understand that we are part of nature and not human plus nature, but human as part of nature, we would be much more open for preventive actions and be able to act proactively. Can we together, collectively, create more preventive understanding of and coexist with the nature and learn how to behave, learn how to be part instead of isolating ourselves with walls and everything else which takes a human being out of the collective natural ecosystem.
All the money, huge amounts of taxpayers' money is exclusively going not only into the pharmaceutical industry, but exclusively going into vaccination, which is a minute part of what health is all about. I don't see any political will, and I'm even quite pessimistic about a EU health union, because that will go into one only direction, which will even carve into marble what they want. carve into marble this one approach towards one thing only, namely vaccinations. And once they have that, that will come up for any flu, any cold we will have in the future. So that's the fear that I have. My hope is, on the one hand, the people. They are not heard at all at the moment, even though they take to the streets every day, but they will go on, I know that, and I'm joining them occasionally. The other hope that I have is in people like you, that you use your influence with the political leaders, because citizens so far don't get heard.
It's not where we are, it's where we're going. 50% of health is personal responsibility. Well, that works really well if you know how to take personal responsibility. One of the things of individualism, we were taught not to do community. We were taught to take care of ourselves first. And I think we need to do that, is give back society responsibility for health. And that means changing society from being very much a society where we learn privacy first to a society we don't overshare, but we don't undershare either. Choose to be healthy and respect health.
Healthcare services are actually repair shops, which means that the experts are very good at repairing things. What we need is health departments. We don't want more repair shops. We want more health systems. We want not medical schools. We want health schools.
At the same time, I see that a lot of knowledge that you are missing is around, but it's what I call in the private medical realm, let's call it. This knowledge is spreading, but completely unattached to any politicians, any governments. It's in the private area. And that's why I'm saying the political will is missing, and consistently.
What should be public and what should be private and what should be corporate and so on and so on. Push that all the experiences, especially if they're funded by public money, they should be part of a big public repository that everybody can learn from, and each doctor can search for clues. And this could be seriously step forward and could bring a very powerful tool on board for preventive care, because we would be able to do a much more thorough analysis of causes, and then really bring attention to the environment that creates conditions for sickness, illnesses, and then address that environment better in order to prevent. 50% of our resources and time should be focused on behavior, 20% on environment, 20% on genetic, and only 10% on health.
Advertising around is so aggressive. A commercial determined as so aggressive to make profit, and then it is so difficult to change. Lifestyle medicine. It's a very difficult area of medicine, which can change a little bit situation with behavioral risks, behavioral challenges. Of course, we need to have in our hands a lot of instruments, but now today science is full. We see shelves of books, shelves of proposals, shelves of public health instruments. How can we introduce taxation issues? What can we do with marketing? How can we provide a regulation to diminish commercial pressure on our children and adolescents? What can we do with healthy food? How can we change today's global health chain, which full of preservatives, and how can we produce more fresh food? It's a lot of issues related to our behavior, environmental, and our everyday business. And we need to be vocal, and we need to raise those questions, because holistic approach is simple word, but it is very difficult to implement in our nowadays political reality. We need to now to understand that the strategy from farm to fork should be based on concept of health and healthiness. How can we use instruments of healthiness in every area of our life?
We need to keep going, and we need to keep speaking up, because this is a process. And I feel that we are at the beginning of a very big river, but we are still in the stream right now.
The future is already here. It's just not very widespread. And there are some practitioners, particularly I find in the primary care realm, the GPs, we call them GPs in our country, who have got out of their surgeries because they've got fed up with that prescription pad approach to medicine. Loneliness is a bigger problem than smoking in terms of our impacts on health. We need to get away from this sort of all about the lifestyle and much more into the relationships. That's the key, I think. It's actually it's a better place for humanity to arrive at. That's what I aspire to for my children and their children.
Who knows what's going to be tomorrow, but certainly something that we are co-creating together.